using Please follow us on LV Launchbox using hashtag, or if taking any pictures or videos, please add the @Launchbox hashtag. This program will be recorded, and any questions will be taken at the end of the program for the question and answer portion of the program and or during our networking portion, which is after the formal discussion portion of the program. If you would like to see all participants on screen, please click on the gallery view on the upper right corner of your screen. Before we kick off our program, I would like to introduce Dr. Tina Q. Richardson, Chancellor of Penn State Lehigh Valley. Dr. Richardson has been the Chancellor since 2015. She is a visionary and strategic leader with more than 30 years of higher educational experience. She is the founder of Launchbox Lady Speaker Series to cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset and teen entrepreneurship camp. She also serves on several community boards, including Lehigh Valley Partnership, Lehigh Valley Economic Development Boards, and Lehigh Valley Chambers of Commerce. She has completed several prestigious fellowships, including the Pennsylvania Education Policy Fellows Program, American Council on Education ACE Fellows Program, and HERS, just to name a few. Most importantly, she has a leadership style that embodies a passion for student success, creativity, endurance, humility, and the confidence of transformational leader. Dr. Richardson.
Thank you so much, Mellie. Mellie is a senior at Penn State Lehigh Valley. She's majoring in psychology and minoring in business. She has career plans to pursue her next stage of life career in industrial organizational psychology. Mellie is not only the moderator today, she is doing an internship with Launchbox. In addition to being an outstanding moderator, as you will see today, being a student and an intern, she is also the mom of a teen entrepreneur who makes bracelets. So stay tuned. Perhaps she'll outfit us in that as well. It's very gratifying to see a student like Mellie and many others at the Penn State Lehigh Valley campus excel. It's gratifying to see Mellie do so because she's managing so many demanding roles. And I genuinely appreciate your commitment to excellence, Mellie, and I know all of us will see that today. To the audience, I would say welcome and thank you for attending today's virtual program for Launchbox Ladies. This speaker series is committed to expanding not only the network of everyone who participates in it, but to provide invaluable information that allows us all to grow and expand our entrepreneurial mindset. So today's event will feature 3 highly accomplished banking professionals, individuals who are committed because the institutions that they work for has a commitment to growing local businesses. As we know, community banks really commit to supporting the economic development and the entrepreneurial spirit of the local community. And so we'll have an opportunity to learn a great deal about each of the 3 banks represented. I was looking at some information from the Independent Community Bankers of America organization, and I was surprised to find out that community banks provide about 60% of all small business loans. And so we really can't overstate the importance of community banks to entrepreneurs. And Launchbox gives us an opportunity to really share in the space that community banks operate in. The Lehigh Valley Launchbox serves early stage business, early stage startups. In fact, we're early stage business accelerator, and we're connecting entrepreneurs to to information and resources they need to build successful, sustainable businesses that are capable of long-term growth. Any member of the Lehigh Valley community can take advantage of the resources that we offer. It's not limited to people affiliated with the university in any way. So if you have a scalable idea, we welcome you to access the resources that are available through the Launchbox programs that we have throughout the year. So far, we have had an impact or influence on over 75 or more businesses in early stage. We help businesses
Looks like we may have lost Dr. Richardson. Hopefully she'll come back, but go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Richardson. I would like to introduce our expert panelists for Launchbox Ladies program today, titled Community Banks Small Business Funding Opportunity. I will introduce now Denoli Rowland. It's the Regional Business Banking Relationship Manager with PNC Bank. She is a PNC certified women's business advocate, where the goal is to support women-owned business and C-suite executives. She joined PNC Bank in 2015 and PNC Business Bank in 2020. She earned her MBA from Kean University in 2012 and Bachelor's of Science in Hospitality Administration from Widener University in 1996. Outside of work, she is engaged in community by volunteering with Grow Up Great, Easton Main Street Initiative in Easton, SCORE Lehigh Valley, and Bloom. June Weber is the Regional Banking Initiative Officer with ESSA Bank. June is a graduate of Cedar Crest College and Stonier's National Graduate School of Banking, enjoying a banking career spanning 40 years in the Lehigh Valley. In 2006, she joined Team Capital Bank, a de novo bank, where she became Lehigh Valley Regional President, overseeing the regional retail and commercial lending division. Throughout her career, June has served on boards and committees of various nonprofit organizations in the Lehigh Valley. Our third expert is Alex Richardson. He is a commercial banker with American Bank, headquartered in Allentown. He started his career in banking in 1999. He has expertise in many areas of the bank, including commercial bank, retail bank operations, senior leadership, and employee financial wellness. Alex is originally from Baltimore, Maryland. He attended Virginia Tech, majoring in sports management. Alex has been married to his wife, Tracy, for 28 years. They lived in Virginia until moving to Pennsylvania in 2017. They have 2 wonderful daughters. Now, before we begin, I first want to remind you that if you have any questions, to please place them on the chat for question and answer portion of the program. This will enable the panelists to share their expertise about the community banks and small business funding opportunity with uninterrupted information and resources for our listeners. You will also have an opportunity to ask questions if you don't want to place them on the chat below. To continue the discussion for the networking portion of the program, we encourage you to stay on the program, please. So let's begin. Now, I'm going to take a minute or two to let our panelists introduce themselves and the bank they represent. Let's start with Denoli Rowland.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Richardson, and the team at Launchbox. Thank you so much for asking me to be on this panel. I'm really excited to be here. I've been in banking for 20 years. I have an undergraduate degree in restaurant management, and then I moved into banking. And I've been in banking for 20 years now with PNC for 6. And I think what I truly enjoy is working with small business owners. And what makes me different from other business bankers is that I'm in a virtual position PNC created a whole new team of bankers, and all we do is work with clients through Microsoft Teams, video, and phone call. So we make it very easy. We're a highly accessible, highly digital team, and this is what we do all day long. So thank you for having me, and I really look forward to the rest of this call.
Thank you, Denoli. Wonderful. Next, June Weber. She will be introducing herself and her bank that she represents.
You're on mute, June.
Yep. Okay. Yes. I think someone muted me. Hi, everybody. We'll start over. My name's June Weber. I'm with ESSA Bank. Happy to be here. Happy to be part of this. It's very exciting. As we were talking earlier, everything does start with an idea, and entrepreneurs, small business owners are really the heart of America, and how we, as banks, community banks, and all size banks, really enjoy working with the small business person to listen to their ideas and watch them grow and help them along the way. ESSA Bank and Trust was started over 100 years ago, is really community driven, community oriented through not only the bank and its foundation. Primarily its geographic markets are in the northern tier of Monroe, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area, the greater Lehigh Valley, and also the greater Philadelphia area. So look forward to the conversation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, June. Next up is Alex. Please tell us a little bit about you.
Yes, thanks, Mellie. You did a good job already explaining it. So I'll just say I'm really, really happy to be here. Glad to talk to you all. Just want you all to know from this, there are no silly questions. There are no bad questions. Please feel free to ask us anything. And don't just get to know us, but get to know your own banker if you have one, because they can be a really, really big resource for you. We love our jobs. The three of us just kind of shared that just as much as you love what you're trying to accomplish as an entrepreneur. And so we take it seriously in the sense that we want to help in any way we can. So please ask questions and utilize us any way you can. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Alex. Wonderful. Well, let's start with our first question of the program. Do community banks prefer lending to small businesses or startups as opposed to larger corporations?
Well, I can start off and welcome Alex and Denoli to kind of piggyback off of the answer, the commentary that I have. But I will say that community banks and really all banks, they enjoy the relationships and growing their small business sector. It's an important sector because it reaches across so many different industries and touches on so many different lives. And impacts each of the communities in which those small businesses operate. So I would say that that is definitely an initiative at our bank, but also speaking just in banking in general, it is a dedicated effort and an important effort for all banks.
I would agree with June. It's something that we're passionate about here at PNC. We start with clients who are just starting out their businesses all the way to supporting corporate companies. Some of the largest companies here in the Lehigh Valley are clients of ours and throughout the country. And so how do you bring, banking and lending to the entrepreneur, to someone who's a solopreneur, someone starting up? What do we do? How do we set you up? How do we take care of those needs till you become that corporate giant, and then move you on to a different relationship manager? So that's what I do on a daily basis. I work with we call clients who are just starting up all the way to $1 million in annual sales. The micro segment doesn't mean you're micro in any way. You just call it the micro segment just to differentiate you. But if I use that word, doesn't mean you're small in any way. So it just means, there's other opportunities to help you. Personally, when it comes to credit, what I say to everyone is you have to protect your personal credit. And if you don't protect your personal credit, really there's you're going to have a very difficult time getting credit. So I'll stop there. And if Alex, if you wanted to.
Yeah, thank you, Denoli. Coming from a small bank perspective, I work at American Bank. It's one location in Allentown. We don't have multiple locations. And so as a smaller bank, we love working with smaller businesses. And we're also limited. Because of our size, without getting into the weeds, we can only lend up to so much anyway to a larger business. So we know where our bread and butter is, and we are a small, truly small bank that works with all levels of clients. And coming from a bigger bank, I used to work for Truist and Bank of America over the course of my years. And Denoli can speak to this really, really well. The bigger banks have a small business unit like they do, because the small businesses usually feels like there's a miss there. Banks haven't done a really, really good job over the years, really connecting to that small business owner, that entrepreneur, and they're really trying hard to do that. So that's where it's really important to take advantage of, regardless of the size of the bank, but take advantage of that small business banking unit, because that's what they're there to do. So when you think, oh, maybe I'm too small to talk to a bank, no one is too small to talk to a bank. And really most banks now, large or small, are going to have a dedicated team that will work with entrepreneurs and small business owners, because that's a segment of the banking industry that has not been well taken care of in a consistent basis. I think banks do a really good job at it, but consistently, it's always been an issue. So again, we do not care and never feel like you're too small to do business with a bank.
Thank you, Alex.
Sure.
Well, beautiful explanation. Thank you, everyone. What type of financing funding is best for small businesses?
Do you want me to? Yeah. It just depends on the business, really. There's no one set, oh, you need this, this, and this. As I stated before, it's the relationship that you have with your banker. I believe like all the banks have we have pretty much the same products and services. You're not coming to PNC because you like orange and it's our favorite color. You're coming because maybe you have a relationship with me or someone referred you to me. And that's how I build my network. And that's how I build, my client base. And they're not just clients, they're people who have my cell phone number. They text me. We went through this whole PPP loan process and we were working till 2, 3 in the morning, just working for our clients to get them the information that they need so they could apply, so they could support their companies, their employees. And there's a real trickle effect to that. And when you speak to someone who's a business owner, I don't think of them as, this business. I think of them as, all of the aspects of their personal, who they touch, their employees, what their goals are. So it's not just, what type of financing is good for you. I really want to get to know the customer, the client, find out what they want. I'll give you an example. I had someone was referred to me and she wanted to open a cleaning company. And I said, well, what type of lending are you looking for? She's like, I just need a loan for $500. I said, well, okay. That's not something really that maybe a credit card, a business credit card. But then I said, what do you want to use that 500 for? Well, we want to set up a cleaning company. We want to send out 500, postcards. I said, well, are you working full time? She said, yes. I said, well, what time of day? Who are you going to clean for? Is this residential or commercial? And she's like, residential. I said, well, if you're working during the day and your customers are also working during the day, I don't think they'll want you to come clean their house while they're preparing dinner, doing homework with their kids. So just helping people walk through that process. And my recommendation to her was, why, and then, we talked about credit and her credit wasn't the best. She hadn't set up her LLC, all of those things come into conversation. But really, what I did was say to her, why don't you join some of the networking groups here in the Lehigh Valley? And I gave her, 1 Million Cups, Launchbuck Ladies, and a couple other groups that I'm a part of here. I said, why don't you network yourself, get 1 or 2 customers, and then ask for referrals? instead of hitting your credit, based on what she was telling me about her credit, it would have been a decline. So those kinds of things come into, you have to take them into consideration when making recommendations, because you don't want someone to get a ding on their credit and then it lowers their score. So it's just a lot of things that, at least when I work with clients, I don't just want the unit or the widget. I want the relationship. I'm looking for the long-term relationship. I've had clients in banking that were babies, they came into the bank with their mom as a baby and now they're starting their businesses, finishing college. I can't believe I'm that old, but yes, it happens. And the relationship is key more than just lending to someone. So I'll say that again, you just have to take care of your personal credit and build your business. And then of course, there's lots of other options, the SBA, all different options that we have. So.
Wow, thank you. That is wonderful. I never actually thought of it that way, to keep a professional communication with my banker. I do not have his phone number.
I think Denali makes a great distinction, and banking sometimes is mystical to a lot of folks, or it can be scary, or they're just afraid to come into a bank or how to go about it. But we're really the people business. I mean, it all boils down to relationship, as Denali said, and being in the people business, and getting the right relationship manager, the right banker, interviewing a few of them as you're embarking on the new business or the small business that you're looking to build up is you want that connection. And it is very common to have that strong relationship where your banker knows so much about you that you almost feel like they're part of your family, because they often, the customers will call you, after the 9 to 5 hours to say, hey, I just ran into this situation or opportunity. Do you have some time tomorrow to further talk about it? Can you give me some things to really think about tonight, or what do I need to do, or how to handle it? So the important thing is forming that relationship, being involved, and that your banker really knows your business. That's one of the fun, as Alex was touching on it, and Denali, that's one of the great parts about being a banker, that yes, we are obligated to understand banking and regulations and compliance and products and services. But if a banker is just pushing products and services and just talking in that type of speak, if you will, they're really not getting to know the business and how a business operates, and how the person and the people behind the business, what they really need. And so it really starts with relationship, understanding a lot of the details, and having the banker create that T-chart, if you will, what's the positives, what's the negatives, what needs to get done, and then working through it. And then from that comes, here's where I think we should go. It sounds like you need a line of credit. It sounds like you need a line to help with your short-term financing needs, where you need to put money out in the street to buy product or inventory. And then when that turns into cash, you'll pay that down and create availability on that line of credit. So it leading with a product or service really isn't the style. I don't think that any of the panelists, I think they would agree that it's really a conversation to begin with.
Okay, well, thank you.
And to add on what June and Dolly said, when you really think about it, it's what you're doing is extremely hard. And it's taken a lot of effort on your part to get where you are, where you're having a conversation and about, from getting started to your LLC to all of these different things. And then you go to the bank and you're hoping, okay, I need a loan. And all banks, and they all phrase it in different ways, but there's 5 C's of credit. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of the 5 C's of credit before, but it's character, it's capacity, it's collateral, it's capital, and then it's conditions. And when you look at what kind of loans do banks do, all banks, we're looking at collateral. Very, very, very rarely would you get a bank loan, especially to start a business, just off of your good name, even if you have really good credit. I mean, credit is important and that's good, but we're going to also look at a lot of different things. Do you have a secondary source of income? Do you have cash that you're willing to put into the project? The bank is not going to give you 100% of that. Why? Well, because if there's no risk there for you, why should the bank take on all that risk? And sometimes those are tough conversations to have, because people think, well, maybe it should be a little bit different than that, but it really isn't. We're lending money, and we're not in the business to take back collateral, computers and cars, and we're not in that business. We're in the business of lending money and helping you succeed, and then you paying us back as agreed. That's how we win. And so depending on the type of business, it could be real estate related. Depending on the type of business, it may be an SBA loan where the government comes into play. If you own your own home, you may have to use the collateral in your own home. And that also scares people sometimes. Well, gosh, I don't want to touch my own home, because while this is a business and I want it to go and I want it to be successful, I don't want to risk my personal residence in this process. Well, guess what? That's part of the hard part of being an entrepreneur. Sometimes you have to be willing to put up some collateral on your own personal residence, or your own cash, or however you're doing, or borrowing from family and friends, however it comes about. But understand that there's going to be sacrifice and give and take on both sides. And so, yes, are there grants? And I know we're going to talk about some of that stuff down the line. Are there other things that are out there? Sure, they're out there. But depending on the type of business, that's where the conversation will come into play. And both ladies said it best. If I start pushing out all these different types of products, then I'm just throwing that spaghetti against the wall and seeing if it sticks, and go, okay, is it cooked enough, or is it al dente enough? Well, no, that's not what this is about. It's more about me saying, or you coming into any one of us and saying, this is what I want to do. Can you give me a loan? And we're probably going to have 100 questions for you, questions that you can go, why does that matter? Why does it matter if I have a secondary source of income? Why does it matter if I own my own home? Why does it matter what my credit score is? Because all of it matters. And if you work with a banker long enough, and June said it, interview multiple ones, talk to them, get an understanding what they're about, what they're trying to do as a banker. If character is important to us as a banker, then character should be important to you as an entrepreneur when you're deciding who your banker is going to be. So just know that it's not always going to be a quick answer to a simple question. You're probably going to get a whole lot more questions asked back at you. But the short of it is, we do a little bit of everything, but it will depend on where you are. And I think Denoli said it first, and June piggybacked it. Having good personal credit is a really big piece of being able to borrow money as a business owner. You cannot discount that. We can't overemphasize that. Having good personal credit is really important. And so if that is ever an issue with anybody on this call, again, you may have conversations with us that are focused more on how do you fix that. And you go, I thought you were a commercial banker. Why are we talking about all this other stuff for me personally? Because it's really that important.
It starts with the person. Yeah, well said. It really starts with the person. And I'll just add, and we're very enthusiastic, as you can see, about what we do for a living, and happy to be here. But if the banker is doing more talking than listening, then I would question that. A good banker really listens and then tests for understanding. So, and so that's always worked well in my career. And that's the exciting part, because we get to learn so much about so many different industries.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Now, to piggyback off of that, can anyone just briefly describe to me the loan application process for a new business?
Sure, I'd be happy to go into it a little bit. It just depends on the bank that you're working with. It might be a paper application. It might be something that you do online. It might be something that you have to meet with, either with me, in my case, of over a video call or in person. But really, what you would need is to be in business for at least 2 to 3 years. You'd have to have some tax returns for your business and your personal. And, there's lots of different options. Even if you went through the SBA, they would ask you for a lot of documents. And I know the team at SCORE helps with, a business plan. So you could be asked for a business plan. You could be asked for interim, you know, I'm losing my words here, P&L statements, things like that, just because it's a mid-year. So you never know. But the key is really to, speaking to a client the other day, protecting your personal credit. And I tell every single person that wants to find out what the process is for getting a loan. So, every year on your birthday, put a reminder on your calendar to check your credit report at annualcredit.com, because that gives you a full report of exactly who you have trade lines of credit with, and contact information. If you have delinquencies, if you have anything that's outstanding, maybe an old hospital bill from when you were in college or something like that, it'll show up there and you can pay it off. You can get a letter that states that you paid it off, and then hold on to those things. Sometimes when you're going through a loan and these little things come up, we need proof that you've paid it off. You might have great credit. And the reason we speak about credit too is because it just depends whether you get a loan at 4% or a loan at 10%. That's a huge amount of interest that you'd be paying over the life of the loan. So there's a lot of components to it, but when you're setting up your business, it starts with setting up your business correctly, with the right CPA, the right lawyer, the right, SCORE mentor. You need to have a little bit of background, especially if you're doing an SBA loan. They'll want to know your background and why. If I was going for a loan, I said, I have this background as a restaurateur. That's my undergraduate degree. And now I want to start a bank. The SBA would say, well, what background do you have in banking? You were in the restaurant business. So there has to be all of those. There's a ton of stuff that goes into it, but really it's being in business for 2 to 3 years to having your tax returns, to showing a profit, all of those things. You need to have those components together, in order to have your loan approved. And I think in having a conversation with your banker, that's the key to knowing how to get yourself prepared for it.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think coming to the conversation, the initial meeting, either with a business plan, along with the financials and tax returns, what have you, or that introductory call to say, how do I get started, or how should I approach the bank? What would be a great way to come in fully prepared? And then the banker, we would talk to the individual or the individuals about the importance of really the strategic plan, your business plan, creating sort of a mission, how you're going to do it, why you want to do it, and then how to support it from a financial standpoint. Employees, location, competition, all of those kind of things. And Denali did talk about it, very important as far as, we all have reminders about time to make a doctor's appointment, time to get our car inspected, but your financial health is also so important. So include that in your health checkup, your financial health.
That's actually a wonderful analogy, financial health. Thank you. Alex, would you like to add to
Sure.
that?
I mean, your financial health, like June said, is so important. And they both said it. 3 years tax returns. If you haven't heard of a personal financial statement, you can find them online. Every bank has one. The business plan for what you're trying to accomplish. And please don't mistake what we're saying as we're deciding whether or not that's a good business for you or not. We're not. That's not our role in any of this. Our role in this is to help you fund it if it's possible. Now, the SBA and Denali said some stuff about that earlier, which is really important. They are going to want to know a whole lot. But part of wanting to know a whole lot is understanding how deep you have gone into this process yourself. Did you just wake up and go, I know I want to do this? And you didn't think about anything. You didn't think about competition. You didn't think about what your cost analysis. You didn't think about the business plan. You didn't think about, do you need a storefront, or can this be done from a home-based business? And when you didn't think about all those things, but you expect the bank or the SBA to loan you money on it, you're setting yourself up for disappointment, unfortunately, and we don't want that. And so part of the reason that we ask those questions and want that information isn't to read through it and go, oh, I don't really think that you're going to do this. It's more of, you took the time to come up with the business plan, look out, forecast 5 years out to say, this is where I expect it to be. And why do you expect it to be like that? Those things really make sense. It really tests the question, are you truly vested into this small business that you're trying to accomplish and create? And so those things are really important. And then, of course, your tax returns, personal tax returns. They don't have to have business tax returns in the sense that, yes, you should be in business, you should have started this already, but it can flow through your personal tax returns, which is fine. It does not have to have a separate business tax return to it, unless you choose to for your own reasoning. And that's where I can't remember if it was June or Denali talked about having a good CPA, having a good account, having a good attorney, et cetera. When you're doing all this stuff and you go, well, I can just go online and do it. Yeah, you can. And that's fine if you do it that way, just as long as you have some resources to help you out there. But just be prepared when you are feeling like you're ready to apply, be it if it's online or if it's going to be, in person, or a piece of paper, however, the bank does it, but really be prepared for, again, a whole lot more questions than answers. And June said it, if we're talking too much, then we're not listening to see if you have what you have come to the table with. And normally that's kind of how the three of us would start that conversation. What have you done so far? And then start building more questions from there.
Now, what would be the top three things a small business should look into before funding or guarantee is at least a small fund? What would be the top three?
Number one, the business plan. That they've actually started something at this point, and normally starting something at this point may be, hey, you've done enough where you've started creating it. You've gotten an LLC. You started maybe even doing some business. Maybe you're making. Before we got going in here, we were listening to Dr. Richardson, and she said how she was doing something that was more hobby related that could have then turned into a small business. And that's a really good start for us as well. What have you already done to get the ball rolling in this business? And then, of course, do you have your personal finances in order before you start coming and talking to a bank about, or at least know what they are? When you don't know, and we ask that question about your personal finances, and someone goes, I don't even know my score. That's not a good thing. You should, at today's world, everybody has access to their own score and they should know it.
I think also research. You should really do a lot of the research on what you're looking to do. There's, with technology and the programs we have and the community development centers we have a lot of access to information. And knowledge is power. It really can be a powerful thing. So it's not only knowledge of what you're looking to do, but then how will that transact, if you will, within the community where you're looking to establish a business, and is it relevant today? Will it be relevant in 2 years? Thinking about all of those kind of things from a research standpoint and being realistic. It is sometimes hard because you'll meet someone and they'll be talking and they're so passionate about an idea, and through some questions that your banker may ask, it inputs some reality checks into their overall dream, but it's really for their good. You don't want them going in there with unrealistic expectations. And that's where a bank can guide to say, what is your research? Have you looked at what a business that you're looking to do? How is that scaled up? What are the financial demands on that? Do you, when you're looking at your projections, have you allocated enough? And, some will say, well, I'm going to just do it all myself. Then do you have the time? What will, the stress and the time on that, sort of painting that reality picture. And banks want transparency from the small business individuals. Be transparent. We always like to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, because then we can help. And that, again, it begins not only the relationship, but an important component of a banking relationship is trust. And that will take you a long way and grow the relationship with your banker.
I would say I agree with what June and Alex have both stated. It's really the relationship that you have with your banker. It's the relationship you have with your CPA. If someone's just doing the taxes for you and not advisory, you need to look for someone else along with, an attorney, if that's someone that you're using. I always like to get recommendations, from people and their background of experience with that person. Are they willing to work with someone who's smaller, just starting up, or are they just too busy now and they're in the corporate world? So it's those things when you're setting up your business from the beginning. I mean, at PNC, you can get a loan if we can give you a line of credit up to 10% of your annual gross without, documents. You don't need tax returns, things like that. But you do have to have really great credit. And we've had clients who've been in business for maybe 2 years, and we're looking for 3 years of tax returns. They'll get approved through the SBA instead of a conventional loan through the bank. The SBA will underwrite it because their credit scores are like 800, and we know that they have this history of payment and they have income, they have personal income because, we don't really want to own your business. That's not what we do. We don't want your gas station. We don't want your, whatever business that you have. We don't want to own it.
Right.
So, that's the goal is to, for me, when I speak to people, I'd rather have that upfront conversation. I'll never say, no, I don't want your loan. I don't want to put it through. Legally, we're not allowed to tell you we can't put it through unless it's a part of the list of businesses we don't lend to, such as, for example, marijuana related businesses, right? They're federally regulated, even if the state says, oh, sure, you can have a marijuana pop-up shop or whatever it is. I think it really, if you want to create a list, I'd be happy to send it to you. But, those are the kinds of things. It's really about that relationship. And you have to remember, if you go to 1 million cups, it takes 1 million cups of coffee to build your business. It takes 1 million people to come around you, to support you. And, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. And I really salute you as an entrepreneur because I certainly do not have that chutzpah. So
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I would say, and I'm sure the ladies have had this before. One customer called me a dream killer because I would ask all of these questions, and I'm not your. I promise you, that's not what I'm trying to do. But we have to have you look at the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is if it doesn't work. If it doesn't take off as fast as you thought it would, what is your contingent plan? And that's part of it. And it's not us saying that it's going to fail. It's just us trying to be as realistic with you as possible and transparent. And June said that earlier. Transparency is so key because we usually find out. So if you try to hide it from us and we find out, it looks bad. It goes back to those 5 C's and character being the first one. Go on and tell us what the challenges may be. Because again, it's not up to us to say whether or not you can do the job that you're trying to start the business that you're trying to start. We just need all the information up front. And again, we're just helping you think of worst case scenario because that's how we have to think.
Well, and when you're formulating your projections, you want to account for exactly what Alex and Denali said, and that is, here's where I'm going to be year 1, year 2, year 3. we'll ask the question, sort of have you sensitize that? Have you said, well, what if I only have sales of 80% of what I projected, and my expenses, we're in somewhat of an increasing expense environment, right? With inflation. What if my expenses are X now? If they go up 2%, how does that impact my bottom line? So it's working with a spreadsheet where you can kind of plug in numbers. And again, they're point in time, but it gives you a pause to really think about how important those numbers are and how they really can change the whole dimension of what you can and maybe can't do based on what you thought you'd be able to plan to do, from sales or from expanding, buying additional equipment, what have you. So getting behind those numbers and understanding them and accounting for some change, because that happens. The best laid plans sometimes get derailed for one reason or another. I think in our one of our conversations also, we did talk about some riskier industries, and Alex brought up restaurants, for example, that, and I don't know, Alex, if you've seen folks come through your office looking to, open up that dream coffee shop / restaurant, what have you. And that is a higher risk industry for a bank. And the reason is because of, and again, not to paint a negative picture, but it's a reality picture of the competition in the restaurant world and the amount of failures that often happen in the first several years of owning a restaurant, starting a restaurant, and the sets of challenges that we have now in the labor market. So there's a lot to think about.
Excellent. Now, do you have any suggestions for someone who has already obtained a loan, but it's not enough to finance their business?
Well, it just depends on what they're trying to finance. Are they financing, the startup? Are they trying to buy a building? Are they trying to buy a piece of equipment? We just don't hand out loans. It all depends on your annual income, gross income, for us, and what you want to do with it and what kind of industry you're in. So if you're looking for additional funding, I recently spoke to a client who, has about 50, 60,000 that she can get from her local bank, but they're looking for a $500,000 line of credit because they, want to expand tremendously. They have this innovative technology product. And I said, you really have to go and find sources of people who are looking to finance you. You're looking for angel financing. Because if you're looking for, the SBA or a conventional loan at the branch, at your bank, you would have to be doing $5 million a year in business in order to get that 500,000. So, it's a lot. And so, this business is really, they're doing great. I mean, they're running their business with cash. They don't have a lot of credit. They don't even have that line of credit. They can, but they just want it because they need to find developers, software developers, people like that to help them, build out their business. So, I gave her some of my resources. I said, why don't you present at 1 million cups? Why don't you? And then PNC has a partnership with an organization called SheEO, because of the World Economic Forum did a white paper that said that women are 257 years behind men financially. And so PNC created this program, this group within our company called Project 257. And then we partnered with SheEO and they crowdfund. Of course, we put a ton of money into this crowdfund loan option, and it gives women who are 51% owners in their business an opportunity to apply for a loan through SheEO for 5 years at 0%. So, it's $100,000 loan. And if you're doing something with your business that helps, there's 17 categories based on the World Economic Forum's to-do list in the world. So I can send you the link. I've sent it to Catherine already. If you want more information, let me know. But we did have someone locally last year that applied, and in the Philadelphia area, I consider that local. get one of the 5 loans that were given out this year, so which is huge.
Mhm.
So those are the kinds of organizations in Launchbox. I've certainly spoken to people who've received a grant from Launchbox and are looking for the other component. So there's lots of ways. You just have to be innovative. I know the state of Pennsylvania currently has a listing, a loan program out that I just found out about yesterday. So I'll add that to the list of resources that I can give you, but it just takes a lot. It's not just about the loan. It's really about what's the foundation of your business and what's the foundation, what's your background. If you've been in the aerospace industry for 40 years, now you're retired, you're starting a consulting company, and you want a line of credit for that business to start it up. Are you working from home? Do you need a building? Do you want to buy a building? Those other things, there's a lot of multiple factors, but really it's the foundation and the relationship. So I've done a lot of talking here. Sorry.
No, it's great information. I would just add that if for an existing business, that perhaps if they're looking for, some just additional time, if you will, if they need a product in, sometimes working with their trades that they're, supplying those products and services, maybe getting on terms, stretching that a little bit, stretching the trade, they call it. And that sometimes helps, not the pressure of having to maybe make that payment in 30 days, but they'll allow, sometimes at a low cost, a little additional time. So sometimes that can help some of the strain depending on the time of the year. And, seasonality is also a component to think about. If whatever you're embarking on or in, do seasons affect? How do, consumer thinking and seasonality is a question to consider as well.
Wow, I never thought of the seasonality and the business criteria of it, but it totally makes sense. Would you like to add anything to that, Alex?
Just that if you've gone to college and you tried to fill out scholarship applications, or you had a child that went to college and they were trying to fill out scholarship applications, it is a daunting task. You fill out 5, 10, 20, there's so many of them. But there's also so many other people that are applying for it. And there's just a lot of work that goes into it. And sometimes it may not be because the people that get it may not just because they were always, they might have been the only one to apply, because there's so many that some people overlook things. And right now, there's so many resources from SCORE, from your local economic development office, from your SBDC. You'd be surprised how much money is out there that can be in from a sense of grants, not traditional banks and other things, for women, for minorities, you'd be shocked. But you got to work really, really hard, just like if you were applying for a scholarship. And so just understand that that's part of the work that needs to happen if you really want to get those funds that are, could be cheaper or even free in some cases. So you really just have to be ready to work on it. And if you are getting started, like June said, being able to work with the trades could help. But again, if you've gotten a loan and it's not quite enough, why isn't it enough? Be prepared to talk to the bank on why it's not enough and why you feel like it's more that's needed. And then start looking at, okay, here are the ways that we can pay that back if we got it, because that's going to be the next question.
I have seen so many small businesses here in the Lehigh Valley really taking their business, growing it from infancy to, not quite at yet maturity, but into really a sustainable business. And a lot of it has been because advertising and marketing often is a component of a business.
Yes.
And that's daunting. It's expensive. It's how do I reach my market? Who is my target market? And a question that a banker will ask, who are you trying to, who's your target market? Who do you want to walk through the door or ring your phone or what have you? But Denali talked about it early in our presentation, and that is, joining a chamber and joining the various things that are in Lily Valley or the greater Philadelphia area, wherever you're operating out of. That networking, getting to know people. And I've seen multiple businesses really thrive because they're connecting their business with a similar type business, that I can do this if you can do this, and it fits together. And they always say rising boats float. I don't think I have that right. Rising tides
Rising
float all
tides
boats,
raise
right?
all boats.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
So, from a number standpoint, we've got great chambers, associations, groups of people that with, common interests of helping each other. The collaboration is a key component, and it goes to put the work in, putting that work in up front and continuing on at that pace of energy. That's one of the ingredients of success that I have found.
Excellent. So a common question that you're probably all too familiar with, people would like to know, what are the benefits of a local bank opposed to a national bank?
I'll start this
Go
one.
ahead.
As a small business, as a very small bank, we have one location in Allentown and a LPO. And then as a former employee of a bank, of Truist and Bank of America, who are definitely on the size of where Denali is at PNC. And then I've worked at some regional banks that would definitely be comparable to ESSA. We all will say the same thing. We will all say, yeah, we're community focused and people first and all of that stuff. It's really about finding the individual that you have connected with and you feel comfortable with and you trust after talking to them. Because you're seeing the gamut from the three of us. You're seeing someone in a bank my size to June and then to Denali, and you probably all are feeling the same kind of vibe. These three really are passionate about what they're doing. They really I feel like they would be willing to help me out. And we work at three completely different types of banks and sizes of banks. And so they're good people at all sizes of banks. And there really isn't. Some people will say, oh, local decisions. And yeah, that's true. But that doesn't mean the decision will still be in your favor. It could be a local decline. I mean, honestly. So, but the people that are working with you, even if the decision is not being made locally some way, somehow, the person that's working with you is local. And trust me, for the three of us, if we don't have the decision power to make it, we are advocating for you because we've spent all this time working with you and understanding your business. And when we go to present this for approval, we're advocating hard for you because we believe in you, because we've had all those tough conversations. And so you're going to get that regardless of the size of the bank.
I agree 100% with you, Alex. And I've seen, just with, me being in banking for 40 years, when the Great Recession hit in 2008, and, I was through a lot of others, but I saw a collaboration effect from it. And what I mean is that bankers, while we're still competing, we still have to create shareholder value. We've got to do our jobs for our employer. There has just been I think a new mindset of how do we as bankers really help our communities and collaborate together. And we do a lot of that at ESSA Bank, collaborating, getting to know our fellow bankers, with the associations. Asking, how are you seeing, or what are you seeing? And here's what we're seeing, sharing information, because as knowledgeable and as good as we get, we can pass that along, that knowledge and success onto the individual that is in front of us, or the people that are in front of us, and sharing that. So I agree. We need all size banks. That's what makes up America. And, I think it's important that everyone knows that.
I'll speak for the big bank here. To be honest, PNC wants us to be a Main Street bank. We don't want to just slap our logo on a building or a logo on some event. We want, for me, the the organizations that I participate and volunteer with, they're the ones that I can request sponsorships for events or for an annual event or something like that. We don't just want to put a sign up, you know, on the side of some building or whatever it is on a bus. For us, it's that Main Street approach. You know, I'm here in the Lehigh Valley. I've had, you know, like Catherine and some of the other mentors from SCORE send me clients who are based all over the country. What's nice about what I've been able to do is connect those people where they live and work. They might come to Catherine because Catherine's an expert in the beauty industry, but Catherine's like, oh, this customer's in, you know, I don't know, California. And because we're in California, because we're in Texas, I'm able to connect them with someone that'll help them walk through that process of opening their accounts, getting a loan, setting up a credit card, maybe buying a building, maybe, you know, all of those things. You never know what's going to happen with someone. And when we do loans at PNC, and, you know, banking is highly regulated, we don't put in the person's race or ethnicity. It's all based on the credit score, the numbers, you know, the numbers tell the story. And, you know, it's streamlined almost through a computer program. And then we go advocate. You know, if you come on the higher end of the interest rate, we're advocating for you, trying to see if we can lower that. What can we do? Because we want the business, you know, we want you to have the loan. So there's lots of things in building relationships that are key, and surrounding yourselves with, as a small business owner, with those circles of influence, so to say. You know, do you have the correct recommended? Do you have one or two CPAs that you've spoken to? Do you have one or two, you know, attorneys that can help you either set up the business, create your bylaws, create your operating agreement, all of those components, those small little components that will make your business so much easier. And then, you know, with a bank like PNC, we have a ton of resources, and I find out something new every day. We have everything from helping students, you know, university banking, all the way to workplace banking. We come to your workplace and help you set up your accounts, and then help you purchase a home. And then we have everything on the small business end. And now we're doing a lot with a lot of minority communities. Not that we've never done it before, but we have programs specifically designed. And this started well before. This has been going on for years. So it's not just because of what's going on economically or socially in our country. So I enjoy working for a company that has so many resources, because of, with this project 257 specifically, in the partnership with the CEO, it just gives me a platform, because I work with a lot of small businesses owned by women. Just everyone's always looking for credit, and this is like such an amazing opportunity for me to show someone they don't have to bank with PNC, how to get a loan, how to get some funding, and how to get access to a network of people through CEO, which is in Canada and Australia and New Zealand. And so those are the resources maybe that a bigger bank can bring to you, but it's also the relationship that you build around you to, you know, it doesn't matter which bank you go to. We all have lines of credit. We all have credit cards. We all have checking accounts. It's that relationship, because that person are they trustworthy? You know, did Catherine use that person 3 weeks ago and they helped Catherine? Now Catherine's recommending that person to Rita, and Rita says, oh yeah, it was perfect. It was great. You know, so you just meet people in networking groups, and you meet people and just ask them, you know, like, who are you using? Who did you get your funding with? Who do you bank with? And, you know, at SCORE, sometimes I do seminars, and one of the seminars is how to find the right banker. You know, I want everyone to come to me. Of course I do. But I always say to them, you know, talk to the bank that you're currently with. If you're happy with that bank, you know, we have so many choices here in the Lehigh Valley. I think I used to work in downtown East, and there were 8 branches just right around me. So we have so many resources here, and we're so lucky to be here in this Lehigh Valley. That's such a vibrant, you know, entrepreneurial spirit, and supports the entrepreneur so well. So I think it's just you doing that research, having that idea, and having a lot of people support you. And then, you know, it's not just about walking in the door and getting a loan to support your business, because no bank wants to own your business.
Thank you, Danelle Lee, and thank you to our experts. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank you for taking time for joining this event and making it happen for us. Very, very informative. Please don't go anywhere. Please stay tuned as we will now invite everyone to unmute their mics. This is the fun part of the program for our networking portion of the program. If anyone has questions, please feel free to unmute your mics or enter them in the chat.
So there's this term that's called becoming bankable, and you'll see a lot of entrepreneurs, and it was really to work towards that, right? They have a 2 or 3 year plan with their business become bankable, whether that's to buy the building that they've entered or to get a larger line of credit to expand, by buying more product or, open a second location or do something. So it was very intriguing to hear, just a lot of, from our experts about a lot of these things of what it takes to get to that, term bankable. Thank you for sharing all that.
I just wanted to mention that a lot of information has been shared in the chat. If people have not been paying attention to that, there are a lot of links to some of the groups and organizations that we spoke about. So please make sure you take a look at that.
Okay, let's go from the beginning. Let's see questions some participants had here.
So I just want to make a comment. A few years ago, a former student from Lehigh who lives in Ottawa now, he contacted me and he's like, Dr. Richardson, can you connect me with some folks at Black-owned banks in the US? He was a part of an immigrant community in Ottawa that wanted to start their own bank. And we had a wonderful conversation. Needless to say, I don't know why he called me. I think there's some people who could help him a lot better. But what he talked about was people being even afraid to approach banks. And I was sitting in this session and I was thinking, wow, I wish I could introduce him to the three of you, because in reality, what you shared today really humanizes the bank and the banker, so to speak. And it gives some profound insights, I think, that demystifies some things where people have perceptions, how they came to those perceptions I can't speak to. But I think conversations like this really go a long way to help people understand how the bank is a resource that doesn't have to be feared. Feared meaning the belief that you'll never get a loan, you'll never get help from a bank. You'll just have to struggle to patch the financial piece together in whatever way you can. I think you took all the mystery out of that for a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. And I think access to banking, access to capital is so very important. And I do think there are pockets within here, I can only speak for the Lehigh Valley, that really fear banks still. And if we can penetrate those markets through a forum like this, or getting into a fire hall together and just talking, addressing, casually talking, having those conversations, because I do know that there's a large amount of people that are underbanked and underserved, and banks are committed to making sure their doors are open. But you hit on a very important component of banking and community. And I do think, enjoy working with Alex and Denali, and I don't want to speak for them, but it sure, the three of us are in sync with the importance of being we're in the people business, but to get deeper into certain communities so that we really can spread this. I think there's a value there. Thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Richardson.
There's a humanizing of the whole process that you guys represented so beautifully today, and coordinated and collaborated, and I just think that human element will make it easier for people to be able to approach banks and understand the whole process. It's so much better.
Mhm. I think, you've done, you shared some really profound information on so many levels, but the statistic that women are 257 years behind men on average.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly that validates why Lunchbox Ladies needs to keep working, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But Lunchbox is doing as much as we can to help prepare people, to entrepreneurs, to be able to do the outreach and feel supported in the process of doing it. And then we know we're directing them to people who will continue to support. It's nice to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you. I would share another statistic that, before 1987, women couldn't get credit on their own without their husbands, their sons, their brothers signing, the loan for them. So I just think it's tremendous what we've accomplished. And I thank the women who come before me, who've paved the way, for the entrepreneurs today who are running apps and running businesses and creating apps and doing all these innovative things that I would never think of. So, I'll share a little bit more. My family moved to the US in 1987. And when my parents came here, they couldn't get credit, because they didn't have credit. They were immigrants. So they couldn't get a credit card. They couldn't, it took a while. And so my uncle supported my family in the down payment of a house. And so we purchased a house. And of course, my parents got a million credit card offers after that. And so, it's a challenge in all those perceptions of like, how do you get credit? How do you get a basic credit card for $500? How does that happen? So I always say to every single person that asks me the question about, loans and financing, your personal credit is the number one component, because the business is not paying the loan back. It's the person who owns the business that's paying the loan back. And so the credit report shows a history of your payment. Are you on time? Are you 30 days late? Are you 60 days late? Are you 90 days late? So it shows that there's a whole other, we could do a whole other class on how to read a credit report.
It's your individual fingerprint, right?
I'm sorry?
It's your individual fingerprint, like your credit report is you.
We have a hand up here. Salmon.
Yes, I had a question if you don't mind. I was interested to how this banking for small businesses works, like in terms of real estate. So I don't know if you can share but how often do banks work with like real estate developers, especially like in the Lehigh Valley? Does that happen a lot?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, all the time.
All the time. We do a lot with real estate developers, and obviously there's a formula that goes into that as far as what you're trying to purchase and if it's rented and the whole 9 yards. But the short answer is absolutely, we do a lot of work, and I'm sure I'll let June and Denali speak on that as well. But yes, that's a big part of what we do.
With the tremendous growth, with I-78 and our highway system, Lehigh Valley really is, as we all know, has grown tremendously from a real estate perspective. And many of the local and national banks have enjoyed supporting that with their lending, with their commercial real estate loans, both from a construction standpoint or an acquisition standpoint, and then adding the renovation component. They may be buying it and then, over time, let's say if it's a multifamily apartment house, they'll acquire it. And then as tenants leave, they'll, fix up the individual rental units, use the funds that were allotted within, again, understanding the real estate developer's overall plan, fix it up and then rent it. And often, increase the rent slightly because it's been upgraded and what have you. So when we look at ESSA Bank's balance sheet, we have a tremendous amount of loans in commercial real estate.
Yeah, we definitely do too.
Interesting. So if a person isn't necessarily like a high net worth, what options do they have for getting a line of credit?
A line of credit to do real estate development?
Yes, to like fund projects.
Yeah, that's where, again, going back to your ability to have capital. You're not going to look for the bank to fund that. You're going to have to come to the table with something. If it's 25%, so you're going to have, if you use the equity in your house, if you own a home, if you have cash from other resources, et cetera. But I think banks have been done somewhat of a disservice when you see some of the commercials out there, 100%, no money down, all that kind of crazy talk. That's crazy talk. Seriously, that's crazy talk. That's for the 0.01% of folks that are out there, and they probably still don't especially in the real estate market. So that's where having a good one-on-one conversation with a banker to really understand that what the process is. If you're looking to buy an investment property, what you need to put down. Are you, again, just like we would if it was non-real estate development, do you have another source of income? Do you have a W-2 paying job? How will you pay this if you buy this property and the tenants leave and there's no tenant for 6 months?
Exactly.
There are a lot of things that come into play there, and that's where it's just really a good idea for you to sit down and talk with a banker about what your plans are, what you're wanting to accomplish, and what the bank can do to help you with that process.
Well, and I think I love the question and the fact talking about a line of credit. Generally, lines of credit, banks are big on what is the ask, what is your request, what is the purpose of it, and then have the correct credit facility, the correct loan type match up with the credit facility. So typically when you're talking about real estate, you're talking about bricks, you're talking about how over time the whole real estate project, or whatever that piece of real estate is, it's going to take a long time of whatever's helping generate within that piece of real estate, pay the loan back. So that's why they're commercial mortgages. Lines of credit are generally for shorter term uses. They bridge gaps of timing issues within a particular business. So I personally, and the banks that I am working with in my career, real estate lines are not necessarily something that's at the forefront. There may be acquisition and development lines for maybe a project that is really supported by cash or equity, other things that is when you look at the overall credit profile. So generally going into real estate development, it's not met with necessarily a line of credit. Now, some I know, for like a single home that you're going to rent out, what have you, they may use their personal home equity, lines of credit as their down money.
Yeah.
And again, that all has to be factored in because you're really the one paying it back. So if you're going to tap equity from your primary residence, which is your home, which, our home is our heart for all of us, right? That's our safety net. If you're going to use your home equity and take up that equity and put that in maybe what we might call more speculative opportunity. Real estate is now commercial, so you're blending personal with business, which does happen, but you want to make sure that what you're going into can not only pay off the commercial loan, which may be at 75% of the overall purchase price, but then is there enough left over, or is there other income sources to pay down your home equity line or your loan? You really want to look at the full picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
I think you have a better chance if you're owner occupied. At PNC, we just don't really have an appetite for just doing construction projects and things like that. We will do projects to support our clients if it's the next step in their business to own a building, and then maybe they occupy 51% of that building, and then they have a rental next door, a hair salon, a massage therapist, something like that, and rent out the rest of the space. So you won't really see us fund these grand, commercial ventures. And then when, as June was saying, you're using your personal credit to fund a commercial venture, it's very risky. It's very risky, not only for the bank, but also for you. And I think, for us, we're very conservative in how we lend, and we don't want you to live in your car.
No.
So, yeah. So
and I think that kind of leads to what the earlier question around, is it better to work with a community bank? And June spoke to, the collaboration that bankers now have. And I think this is a great example, because what Denoli is saying is that type of lending, PNC has made a choice that they don't really do that. But you heard June and I say, oh, absolutely, that's stuff that we do. We're smaller banks. And for whatever reason, that's in our wheelhouse to do. And so this is where, again, it's not about the size, it's just each bank may have their own, and that it's a moving target, but they may have their own lending criteria, and that can change depending on the way their concentrations look. And so if in this case, if you went to Denoli, she would go, well, the only time we're looking at real estate, if it's an owner-occupied property, you're going to have your business in there, and then you can rent out other pieces of it to someone else. But if you were looking at it to buy and rent out the whole thing, that's just not in our wheelhouse. However, I have a partner, June, at ESSA Bank. Her team does that all the time, and then she can refer you. So again, in Dr. Richardson saying, which is a huge compliment, and we appreciate it, saying that we've kind of broken down that wall of uncertainty when it comes to talking to bankers, and we're humanizing it. That's part of the humanizing process, because now you may get a no, which is not a no because of anything other than we just don't have an appetite for that. But here's one of my banker friends that does. Give them a call. And we know each other, and we know that if Denoli sent me something and vice versa, that I know what that client is going to get. And when that can happen, big or small, we're helping more people in the long run.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Sadly, we were not able to get out to chats, but we will definitely keep you in touch with our expert panelists and how you can continue asking more questions. This concludes our program for today. I would like to thank you, Launchbox Ladies Council, our wonderful panelists, and all of you for joining our program. Also, don't forget to visit our website for a list of upcoming Launchbox programs and future events. Please scan the QR code and consider supporting Launchbox Ladies to continue our mission to provide guidance, support, and mentorship to inspire entrepreneurial mindsets. This concludes our program, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Great job all around.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Great
Really
job.
enjoyed it. We'd be happy to
Thank you.
help out.
Nice meeting all three of you.
Thank you so much.
It's our
Nice to
pleasure.
meet you
Much.
all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Well done.